Hello, hello. So today's session from the Good Vibes Collective is about something that we all experience at some point in our lives, and that is fear. Um, it could be everyday little worries, it could be big things that keep us awake at night. But tonight we are discussing turning that fear into fuel. It's designed to turn that anxious energy into something that propels you forward instead of holding you back. So, for those that don't know me, I'm Claire. I own a number of businesses and I've been in business for nearly 20 years. It'll be 20 years this month. And these on this slide are just some of the areas of my expertise. And as with the previous sessions that I've done, I've looked into the science and theory behind fear, and I've got some tips and techniques that you can use to harness that energy and make it work for you. So let's get on with it then. What is fear? So fear is not your enemy. It's your brain trying to protect you. And it's actually a really healthy emotion. So it's your brain's danger alarm. It's a natural response to what your brain thinks is dangerous. It's your brain's way of saying something's going to go a bit tits up here, be careful. And it's designed to protect us. So back in the caveman days, it was to protect us from threats and danger. And your brain actually doesn't know the difference between a real danger and something that you perceive to be a danger, which is when you're stepping outside your comfort zone. So real threats are usually physical. So if you walk into your kitchen and there's a lion stood there, that's a danger. That's a rational fear. But most fears are actually psychological or emotional. They are not rooted in real imminent danger. They are irrational or anxiety-based fears. So it could be fear of failure, it could be fear of judgment, fear of change, fear of the unknown. It's often based on what ifs. There's a lot of what ifs based on in fear, and it's your brain predicting the worst case scenario. So examples of this are things like public speaking, and our brains often behave to these anxiety based fears in the same way as they would if there was a lion stood in your kitchen tomorrow morning. Now, looking a little bit at the science of it, I don't want to get too sciencey, but we do need to look at a little bit of science. So fear is not a weakness, it's biology. It's a tiny little part of your brain that you can see there in the blue called the amygdala. And it's the part of your brain that reacts immediately to threats. When it senses danger, whether that's a real danger or a perceived danger, you get a rush of adrenaline, you get a racing heart, your breathing speeds up, you get sweaty palms. It's your classic survival mode. Now, your prefrontal cortex, which is the orange bit shown there, is what's responsible for logic and reasoning and your logical thinking. It's supposed to weigh up the pros and cons of a situation, and it's supposed to balance the amygdala. But when fear does spike, sometimes the amygdala overrides that logical, rational brain. So before we have time to think, the amygdala senses the threat. Your body gets flooded with stress hormones, so adrenaline and cortisol. And it usually triggers one of three responses. So you've got the fight, flight, or freeze. Fight, you're angry, you're agitated, ready to confront somebody or something, argue, defend, overassert yourself, and you're attempting to regain safety. Flight, you want to run, either literally run or emotionally just run away from a situation, back off from a situation. You avoid a meeting, you ignore messages, you quit something because you don't want it to challenge you. Let's just not bother trying because then I can't fail. So that's your flight. And your freeze response is when you shut down. So you go blank, you get stuck, your brain stalls completely, and you physically or mentally freeze up. And that can often look like something else. So it can often look like procrastination or avoidance techniques as well. But your brain doesn't actually know whether you are being chased by a tiger or whether you're launching a new business or going live on Facebook or having a difficult conversation with somebody. It can't tell the difference unless you train it to. So fear, it's important to remember fear isn't a weakness. It's your brain trying to keep you safe. You need to kind of tell it, thanks for trying, but it's all right, I've got this. And help that prefrontal cortex take back control. So it's really useful to recognize your default fear response. Do you avoid things? Do you overreact? Do you freeze and do nothing? And having that awareness is step one of conquering that fear and helping it to fuel you instead. One of the most helpful frameworks that we've got when we look at fear is the idea of zones. So each zone represents a different state of mind, different experience. So you've got your comfort zone, and you feel safe in your comfort zone. You feel secure, you're in control. It's familiar, and you know what to expect. You've got minimal risk or no risk. Calm, it's predictable. You are comfortable. It's called the comfort zone. You are comfortable there. But staying there too long can stop you from discovering your true potential, stop you from learning. Just outside that comfort zone, you've got your fear zone. And your fear zone is where uncertainty, doubt, excuses, and often self-imposed limitations are. You feel overwhelmed when you're in that zone. You question your abilities. You worry what other people are going to think of you. It's absolutely normal. Your brain is wired to protect you from danger, and it feels like danger to your brain because you are moving into an unfamiliar zone. It's where a lot of people stop. A lot of people stop there because the discomfort feels too big for them to move past. However, if you move past that fear zone, you end up in the learning zone. This is where your growth starts happening, and you're learning new skills, you are facing challenges, you're getting a bit more confidence, you're developing resilience, and that any failure is then seen as feedback, and you're learning all the time. You're not ruled by fear, you are motivated by possibility when you're in this zone. Following that, you've got your growth zone, and your growth zone is where you will set and achieve new goals, you will gain clarity, your confidence grows even more, and your fears start to reduce. It's important to remember that growth is a cycle. So sometimes you might slip back into that fear zone. Sometimes you might even slip back into that comfort zone, and that's absolutely fine. It's just the key is recognizing and choosing to keep moving forward with it. And then we've got our negativity bias. Negativity bias is when your brain notices, remembers, and reacts more strongly to negative experiences than positive experiences. So a couple of examples. One piece of criticism from somebody will hit you harder than 10 compliments from the same person. One failed attempt at something will stay in your brain longer than 5 successful attempts at the same thing. You focus on risks instead of rewards. So from an evolutionary perspective, the negativity bias kept us alive. So thousands of years ago, obviously I wasn't there thousands of years ago, but thousands of years ago, if you didn't remember that one time that you ate this particular berry, it made you really ill, you wouldn't remember it, so you'd eat it again, and you might not survive because you might eat more of them. So you remember that bad experience. If you weren't constantly alert to threats, back in the day, thousands of years ago, then a rustle in the bushes might mean that, yes, there is a tiger chasing you and you are going to get eaten and you could become dinner. So the brain developed Velcro for bad experiences and Teflon for good ones. So you know, the bad things stick. The bad things stick in your brain, and the good things slip out of it quite easily. So what does that have to do with fear? It amplifies fear unnecessarily. So if you've got a new job pending, or you're starting a new business, or you're going live on social media, you're making a big decision, your brain doesn't naturally think about everything that could go right. It thinks of the worst case scenarios because avoiding any pain or negativity feels safer than chasing any potential. And even if you know you're capable of something, negativity bias will make sure that the what if it goes wrong voice speaks louder than the what if it goes right voice. So how to overcome fear then? This is what we are talking about this evening. And the good news is that you can retrain your brain. It's a natural response, fear is. It's designed to keep us safe, as I've said, but sometimes it can hold us back from growth and from opportunities that are in front of us. And the good news is, like I say, that fear can be managed and it can be turned into a powerful motivator. So reframing fear means changing the way you think about it and shifting the perspective from seeing it as a barrier to seeing it as a powerful tool that you can use. When you reframe fear, you are realizing that fear is a sign that you're about to do something really important, something that matters to you, something that you care about the outcome of, and it's a signal that growth is happening. And one of the most helpful ways to reframe fear is to remember that fear stands for false evidence appearing real. So much of what we worry about or feel scared of is actually based on interpreting worst case scenarios as if they are facts and not actually based on real danger. So we need to realise that fear is often a false story that we're telling ourselves, and it becomes easier to then challenge that and shift your mindset. So let's look at a couple of different examples here of some tools and things that you may hopefully be able to implement. If it will change, yes it is. So am I excited or scared? Now you can look at that little buddy cat there and it could look excited, or if you flip your brain a little bit, it could look scared. You don't actually know. So when we feel fear, our body reacts with physical signs. So you've got the racing heart, the sweaty palms, the butterflies in your tummy, all of those things. But your body doesn't know the difference between fear and excitement because you get the same physiological responses due to a rush of adrenaline, whether it's fear or excitement. So it is quite easy to fool your brain sometimes. So instead of telling yourself, I'm scared, try telling yourself that you're excited. So a small shift can change how your brain interprets these feelings. So you need to engage that prefrontal cortex that I was talking about, the part of the brain responsible for the rational thinking, and help manage your emotions instead of reacting from instinct. So I've got some examples, some real life examples for you. So public speaking, you're going to go and stand on a stage or stand in front of people. Or example for me was I did a speech at my best friend's wedding last month. Nervous as hell, which is normal. But your nerves come from that fear of what if I mess up and everybody laughs at me? You're nervous because it matters to you. Instead of thinking I'm scared to speak to these people, think I'm excited to tell them what I have to say. So for me, it was I can't wait to tell them that funny story about X, Y, Z. Another example, a job interview. You might be thinking that you're not good enough for the opportunity, but they've invited you in for that interview. They've looked at your CV or they know who you are and they've invited you in for that interview. They have belief in you and you need to have belief in yourself. So shift to empowerment and excitement for what's to come instead of that fear. They believe in you. Starting a new business, what if I fail? What if you don't? It could be an incredible learning opportunity along the way, if nothing else. So success starts where that comfort zone ends. That in itself is exciting. And another example, trying something new. So it could be a dance class. It could be traveling abroad on your own. What if I hate it? Or what if I look silly? What if I do something silly while I'm there? It could be the most fun you've had in ages. It's the fear of the unknown there. You need to have that excitement of the possibility instead. Like I say, you're getting the same physiological responses. You just need to flip them a little bit in your head. Right, so then we've got the overthinking loop. Now, this is a great technique. So you need to interrupt that overthinking loop. Fear and overthinking are partners in crime. They show up together on a regular basis. They feed off each other. Fear strikes and your mind jumps into overdrive, imagining the worst case scenarios, replaying your doubts over and over again. You're overthinking, you're in a mental loop, you're making that fear feel bigger and more overwhelming than it actually is. Feel the fear or hesitation. And then you've got about 10 seconds before that fear response takes over and you've either got that fight, flight, or freeze. That first 10 seconds, your prefrontal cortex still has chance to take control before the amygdala triggers the full-blown response. So as soon as you start feeling a bit worried about something, count down from 10 to 1 and act before you get to 1. Don't let yourself overthink. Don't let yourself hesitate. So fear thrives on hesitation and doubt. The longer you wait, the more time your brain has to make that fear even bigger and those fear signals even worse. And that threat then seems bigger to you too. So in acting in those first 10 seconds, you interrupt that process. So something as simple as hitting post on a social media post, hitting go, or making a phone call, or starting a new project. Count down from 10 to 1 and start it before you get to 1. You've not got chance then for that fear and self-doubt to take over. What's the worst that could happen? So when fear is holding you back, imagine the worst, absolute worst thing that could happen. Is it really as bad as your mind is making it out to be? When you break it down, worst case scenarios are actually probably less terrifying than our imagination suggests that they are. So an example, I'm scared of failing at a new project. The worst that might happen is that I learn something out of it and I'll make some mistakes or I have to try again. What's the worst that's happened? Nobody's died. Nothing's blown up. Fear of judgment from others as well. So the worst would be a little bit of embarrassment. And in the grand scheme of life, usually forgotten very quickly. So they might be talking about you for 5 minutes because you tripped over as you walked up onto the stage, but they'll forget about it by tomorrow. So bring fear out of the shadows and into the light instead of letting your imagination run wild. It doesn't minimise your feelings by asking yourself what's the worst that could happen, but it helps you gain a perspective on it and realise that even if things don't go perfectly, then you'll survive, you'll learn, you'll grow stronger. So next time that fear tries to freeze you, ask yourself, what's the worst that can happen? And you might then get that courage to just take that first step. So I've got a personal example here for you. So this is an example of when I could have let fear win. And fear did win for a while, but I worked with it and I got through it. So I used to be terrified, absolutely terrified of doing any videos. Absolutely terrified. Facebook Lives, pre-recorded videos, Zoom calls, petrified of them. So for years I put them off, and I mean years and years and years. What if I say something stupid? What if I look stupid? What if my hair's a mess? What if people hate the way I look? What if people hate what I say? What if nobody watches it? What if people do watch it and then they laugh at me or they think it's terrible? So this is a little journey of mine. 2017, I started to do team videos for the previous business that I was in, but I never showed my face. So that's a little screenshot of one of them. From 2018, I started showing my face on videos, but this was in my comfort space. So this was in my team group. And if you notice, I have a filter on. I always had a filter on for at least 12 months. That was the only filter I ever used. Everybody must have thought I was a cat. But it was my little comfort blanket. 2019, I started getting a little bit braver and holding live events in my customer group, with not so many filters, because I was doing a bit more and moving around. So the cat ears would end up on a balloon or something. So I stopped using so many filters. So this is up to 2019. 2020, COVID hit and my business dynamic changed completely. Everything moved online, as you would imagine. I was terrified of live videos still, but I knew that it was the only way I could continue to run my business. So they grew, they got big, they got hundreds of viewers every time, and my confidence grew. Every time I was feeling a fear, but I was always asking myself, what's the worst that can happen? And it goes back to what I mentioned, I think it was last week, feel the fear and do it anyway. So now look at me. I still get a little twinge of fear, but it's also excitement. I will go live walking the dog. I will send video messages to teamies. I will send video messages to customers. I'm hosting weekly Zoom sessions, funnily enough. And I'm even prattling about in the garden with my new camera gadget. And I will just go live. I hit live or hit record and I just do it. I turn that fear into fuel. And when you actually look at what could really happen, you realise that most fears are temporary or manageable or just completely irrational. So what if I say something stupid? So what if I do? I could say something stupid in real life. It doesn't matter that it's on video. What if I look stupid? Well, if I look completely stupid, more people will probably watch. I end up going viral. What if my hair's a mess? So what? What if nobody watches it? So what? They can watch it back. What if they do watch it and they think I'm terrible? Let them. Again, that goes back to a previous video. So, best way to manage fear, and I really like this one, is putting it into perspective using the 10 minutes, 10 months, 10 years rule. And it helps you to see how temporary your fears are. So ask yourself these questions. When there's something that you are fearing, how will you feel about it in 10 minutes? So usually that immediate anxiety can feel a bit overwhelming, but quite often that does fade within the first 10 minutes or so. Next question is, how will you feel about it in 10 months? You might have moved past that fear entirely. You might have learned from the experience. You might have gained new confidence. And that thing that scared you probably won't carry that same weight after several months, so 10 months. How will you feel about it in 10 years? Long-term perspective. Your fears, most of them lose all meaning when you get to 10 years. The things that felt huge 10 years ago aren't huge now. And when you're thinking about what's the worst that can happen, even if that worst were to happen, would that matter in 10 minutes to other people? Would that matter in 10 minutes to you? Would that matter in 10 months? Would that matter in 10 years? So fear is trying to convince us that risks and discomfort are permanent and that they are totally unbearable. But when you put it into this 10 minutes, 10 months, 10 years rule, it makes you realise that fear is a passing feeling and it's not a life sentence. It is temporary. And this shift in perspective helps to reduce the power that fear holds over you and holds over your decisions. Another great one for fear is to build a support network. So talk about fears with trusted friends, mentors, family. Sharing helps you feel a bit less isolated and more empowered. So you can gain perspective, you can feel understood. And if you open up about what scares you, you can often realise that you're not alone. Many people have got the same doubts and anxieties, and they might not say it out loud. So hearing other stories and talking about them can be really reassuring and give new ideas on how you can face your fears. So you can have a mentor or coach who provides guidance and practical advice, breaking down your fears into manageable steps. Or you might be part of a community, or it might be a group of friends or a professional network or even an online community. And it's that safe space where you can share your fears, your wins, your setbacks without judgment. So it gives you a sense of belonging and it builds your confidence, and fear feels less intimidating. Vulnerability is a strength. So sharing and asking for support is not a sign of weakness. It's a way to build courage and move forward. So reach out, share your fears, let others help you turn those fears into fuel. And practice self-compassion. So fear is human, as I've said. Everyone feels it at some point. The first step is to be kind to yourself when fear does show up. Don't beat yourself up for feeling afraid or anxious about something, or think that fear means that you are weak or you're failing. Treat yourself with the same kindness that you would a best friend. It's not something to be ashamed of. It's a natural emotional response, and it's a signal that you're stepping outside your comfort zone, or that you're facing something important. It's something that matters. So rather than judging yourself, acknowledge your feelings and say to yourself, it's okay to feel scared. I'm doing my best. Focus on progress and not perfection. And you might stumble, you might hesitate, you might feel a little bit overwhelmed. That's absolutely normal. What matters is that you keep moving forward. By facing fear, even little step by step at a time, you'll find that it actually loses its grip on you, and it won't disappear overnight, but it will change from a barrier that holds you back into a source of energy to propel you forward instead. So when fear does visit, remind yourself that you're human and keep taking those brave little steps. You're doing better than you think. So we've got some key takeaways. Fear is not your enemy. It is designed to protect us. And you can't differentiate, the brain can't differentiate between real danger and anxiety-based fear. We've got our zones, our comfort zone, fear zone, learning zone, and growth zone. Am I scared or excited? And reframe your fear. 10-second rule, just do it. What's the worst that could happen? 10 minutes, 10 months, 10 years. Build a support system and practice self-compassion. So fear is a natural part of life. But when you understand it and shift our perspective, it can become a powerful fuel for growth. By recognising how our brain reacts and stepping outside our comfort zones, learning to reframe that fear, we're opening doors to new opportunities and personal breakthroughs. So, fear doesn't have to stop you. It can be the fuel that drives you forward, as long as you don't let it be the roadblock that holds you back. So I want you to have a little think about everything that we've gone through and think about what's one thing that you're going to implement this week to overcome a fear. I would love to hear it. So next week's session is all about the art of networking. It's not just business focused. It's about building genuine connections in every part of life. So that is next Wednesday, 7:30 p.m. As always, we've got my email address, my Facebook profile, and my Facebook page. Any questions, feel free to get in touch. Don't forget to subscribe to my YouTube channel if you're not already. Drop me a like and a comment on there. And finally, thank you so much for joining me. And if anybody has any questions, feel free to pop them in the comments.